Hello history lovers, and welcome to the Henricus Craft Chat. I'm your fairy-tastical host, Nicole. Henricus is a living history museum that focuses on the early colonization of Virginia by the English and on the Powhatan Indian tribe that was in the area. While at work, I am not dressed as a fairy, but today it's one of my very favorite holidays. It's May Day. So I thought this week's craft chat would be a great opportunity to focus not only on British history, but also on British folklore. So what is May Day? Maybe you've seen children dancing around a maypole. Maybe you've even celebrated May Day yourself. Celebrating the coming of summer is a tradition that goes back centuries. So today I thought we could talk about some of those traditions, and then I'll give you a fun and festive craft that you can do at home. Before we start today, I'd like to read a poem to you about May Day that was written in the 17th century by a poet named Robert Herrick. This poem is called Corinna's Going A-Maying. Get up for shame! The blooming morn upon her wings presents the god unshorn. See how Aurora throws her fair, fresh and quilted colors through the air. Get up, sweet slug abed, and see the dew-bespangling herb and tree. Each flower has wept and bowed towards the east, above an hour since, yet you are not dressed. Nay, not so much as out of bed. When all the birds have matin said, and hung their thankful hymn, 'tis sin, nay, profanation to keep in. Whereas 1,000 virgins on this day spring sooner than the lark to fetch in May. Rise and put on your foliage and be seen to come forth like the springtime, fresh and green. And sweet as Flora, take no care for jewels for your gown or hair. Fear not, the leaves will strewn gems in abundance upon you. Besides, the childhood of the day has kept against you, come, some orient pearls unwept. Come and receive them while the light hangs on the dewlocks of the night. And Titan on the eastern hill retires himself, or else stands still. Till you come forth, wash, dress, be brief in praying. Few beads are best when once we go a-maying. Come, my Corinna, come, and coming mark how each field turns a street, each street a park, made green and trimmed with trees. See how devotion gives each house a bough, or branch, each porch, each door, ere this an ark, a tabernacle is, made up of white thorn neatly interwove, as if here were those cooler shades of love. Can such delights be in the street and open fields, and we not see it? Come, we'll abroad, and let's obey the proclamation made for May. And sin no more as we have done by standing, but Corinna, come, let's go a-maying. There's not a budding boy or girl this day, but is got up and gone to bring in May. A deal of youth ere this is come, back and with white thorn laden home, and have dispatched their cakes and cream. Before that we have left to dream. And some have wept and wooed and plighted troth, and chose their priest ere we can cast off sloth. Many a green has been given, many a kiss, both odd and even. Many a glance too has been sent from out the eye love's firmament. Many a jest told of the keys betraying this night, and locks picked, yet we are not a-maying. Come, let us go while we are in our prime, and take the harmless folly of the time. We shall grow old apace and die before we know our liberty. Our life is short, and our days run as fast away as does the sun. And as a vapor or drop of rain, once lost can ne'er be found again. So when or you or I are made a fable, song, or fleeting shade, all love, all liking, all delight, lies drowned with us in endless night. Then while time serves, and we are but decaying, come, my Corinna, come, let's go a-maying.
May Day customs that are practiced in the British Isles, as well as in the U.S. today, have their roots in a mixture of Celtic, Norse, and even ancient Roman traditions. But all over Europe during different times in history, there have been celebrations marking the spring and the coming of summer. These holidays range in dates from St. George's Day on April 23rd to Whitsuntide as late as June 13th. To simplify things, we're going to focus on May 1st, but keep in mind that there is naturally some overlap in traditions. The British version of May Day, sometimes called Beltane, comes from the Celtic Bel Fire, Bel being the god of fire. Bonfires were lit on hilltops, and the smoke from the fires blessed the town and the community and warded off evil spirits and fairies. Cattle, which were being turned out to pasture at this time of year, were driven through the smoke to purify them. These fires were meant to symbolize purity and fertility, and the marriage custom of couples jumping the bonfires to pledge their devotion to each other comes from this. When the Romans came to Britain, they brought their own spring festival of Flora, goddess of flowers, and Maya, goddess of spring, for which May is named. These two cultures combined into what became the May Day festivals in Britain. By the 17th century, these festivals were long-standing, but they would go through several changes in the later part of the century and again during Victorian times. Both May Day and May Eve were considered times of fun, frolic, and fertility. This applied to flowers and fields, livestock, and also young couples with spring fever. People would wake at dawn on May 1st, wash their faces in the morning dew, and go out into the woods to gather fresh flowers and greenery to wear and to decorate doors and windows of homes. They called this tradition bringing in the May. Sometimes specific plants were left on the doors of neighbors that could signify what was thought of them. A May Queen could be crowned with a wreath of flowers, and maypoles were decorated with greenery and erected in each village, with villages sometimes competing to see who had the tallest maypole. The maypole was another symbol of fertility, and dancing, including Morris dancing, and games would take place around it. In the 17th century, King James I allowed maypoles, but later on during Oliver Cromwell's puritanical reign, May Day was seen as hedonistic, and in 1644, maypoles were banned. The ban was quickly lifted, however, when King Charles II regained power. Ribbons did not appear on maypoles until the Victorian times, when May Day was revamped into something a bit more like a polite holiday for children. Those ever-proper Victorians. The folklore of the fairy folk is also associated with May Day. Going back to the old Celtic holidays that marked the quarters of the year, these were considered times when the veil between one world and the next were thin, and witches and fairies roamed the earth, meddling with humans who were unfortunate enough to cross their paths. May Day is opposite on the wheel of the year from Halloween, or Samhain, and both days are considered active times for fairies. In 1691, an Episcopalian minister in Scotland named Robert Kirk collected stories from his parishioners about elves, fairies, and other otherworldly creatures in an essay titled The Secret Commonwealth. In it he notes that fairies, who used to live above ground before humans inhabited much of the land, were driven underground to live in hills, but at the beginning of each quarter of the year they would leave their hills and journey to other lodgings. During these times, people avoided traveling on the highways for fear of meeting them, especially those with the second sight. Often you will also see these fairies referred to as trooping fairies. There are two other important figures that I want to mention who are associated with May Day, and those are the Greenman and Robin Hood. In the 17th century, Robin Hood and Maid Marian became very popular associations with May Day. In later centuries, this association seemed to fade, but during festivals of this time, crowning the characters of Robin and Marian as May King and Queen was a fairly common occurrence. Another character you might see in the 17th century was the Jack of the Green. This is another tradition that bringing in the May might include, where men would go into the woods and adorn themselves from head to toe in greenery. The result was something that looked like a walking tree that would participate in festival processions, usually accompanied by musicians. You can make the correlation between this and the Greenman, a forest spirit or symbol of rebirth, which also made appearances during spring festivals.
Let's take a look at some of the supplies you'll need for this craft. This time it's really simple. All you have to do is go out into your backyard or woods that are nearby. Make sure that you know what plants you're taking, that you're not getting poison ivy or something. But you're just going to want some vines or small branches that you can find that are bendable. So if you don't have anything like this near your house, you can also find some pre-made wreaths at craft stores, but I'm trying to work with all things that are fresh and things that I've got at home. So I found these in my backyard. I went out and went to bring in the May this morning, and we're going to be making some flower crowns. So you're going to need your vines or branches, that'll be your base, a pair of craft scissors, some string or twine, and some fresh flowers. You can use fake flowers if you choose. It will certainly last longer, but this is kind of a festive thing to do, is to gather the flowers on the day. So these are things that I just had growing in my backyard. The lilacs smell really good, and then I've got some Virginia spiderwort and some buttercups. This is also a great thing to do with your kids if you have kids, and to teach them the names of plants and just what's growing in your backyard. So really all you need is the vines, the scissors, the twine, and the fresh flowers. If you're really crafty, you don't even need the scissors and the twine. You can just weave things together. I find it's a little bit easier with twine. And then if you want to add extra bits, you can use feathers, you can use colored ribbons, you can use beads, whatever you feel like and whatever makes you happy. So to start off our craft today, you're going to want your branches, and we're going to just strip off all of the leaves here. And I'm going to be using 3 and weaving them together, kind of braiding them together. Now the other thing you can do with this is to, instead of making a May Day flower crown, you can be a Greenman or a Jack of the Green and leave these leaves on. And I think I'll make one like that too. Okay, so I have my 3 branches, and I'm going to leave the leaves on one of them. And I'll put them all together and just kind of bend gently. And as I get the circle about the size that will fit on my head, I'm holding them here where they overlap, and where the extras are, I'm going to weave those in around the other branches. It's not an exact science. This is fairy magic, people. If you do have to cut branches off of a tree, make sure you only cut what you need, and always give gratitude to the tree. It's just a really nice thing to do, and a nice thing to teach the little ones too. So I've got this in about the circle that I want, so I'm going to take some of my twine around the point where they overlap and tie. And there we go. I'm going to snip off the extra. going to take the twine and tie again so I've got one on the bottom. I'm going to do the top and the two sides. So there is your base. It fits just right over my ponytails. So now I'm going to add my flowers. Remove any bugs gently. Go away, bugs. Now you have some places in here where you can weave in your flowers because you've tied it with the twine or you've woven them in between each other. So I can just kind of stick these in here and they're going to stay. But I want mine to be a little bit extra. I know you're all shocked. So I'm going to add some fun ribbons to mine. Maybe some green ribbons. And these will also act as something that I can stick the flowers into. I've got this cool peacock feather. I'm going to stick that in there too. The best thing about this craft is you really don't have to be too precise, because the more natural looking it is, the better. Now I've got my Virginia spiderwort. I'm going to add that in there too. So once you have everything kind of placed where you want it or woven in, as you can see, some things aren't really holding on as well as I'd like them to. So I'm going to take a ribbon and I'll start at the back so that I can have some ribbon hanging off of the back and tie it on. Just going to do a double knot. And I've got one end kind of hanging down and the other end is pretty long. And I'm going to take the long end and wrap it around. So it's going to do two things. It's going to look pretty and it will hold my flowers in. Making sure you're leaving space for the flowers as you go. Until you get around to the back again. And then you can tie it on to your other string that you left over. And you can trim it or you can just leave it hanging and you can add more in the back. It'll look pretty like that too. And we're all finished. And there you have your flower crown. I think she's beautiful. I'm all ready to go a-maying. If you want to make a crown for the Jack of the Green, you can just take your branches with the leaves still on them and weave those together the exact same way. Now, it doesn't have to be just leaves. You can add other things to these like acorns or different colors of leaves and different types of leaves and represent your Greenman and your Jack of the Green. I hope you've enjoyed this week's craft chat, and whether or not you've celebrated May Day before, I hope you'll do a little celebrating this year. If you have any questions about the video, as always, feel free to drop them in the comments below, and don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to this channel for more craft chat videos. Until next time, I'm toasting to you with some honey mead, which is a traditional May Day drink, which of course honey is made by bees, one of our most important spring pollinators. So happy May Day, everyone, and stay safe. Before before we know our liberty. Our liberty. Our liberty. As I said, it's May Day, so go nuts.